हेलो। सर तो क्लास में है सर अभी। अच्छा, निहारिका मैम तो नहीं है सर अभी। आप सावन सर बोल रहे हैं? अच्छा अच्छा। सर अभी तो सर तो क्लास में है और मैम आज लीव पे है। अच्छा, जी मैं रनीश बोल रहा हूँ आज। अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा। अच्छा सर मैं आपको बस अभी 2 मिनट में करता हूँ। अभी 2 मिनट में कर रहा हूँ। मैं कर रहा हूँ सर।
Okay, good afternoon. Uh,
Good afternoon, sir.
okay, so today I will discuss the something more about, say, the uplift pressure, exit gradient, and piping phenomena. So we have already seen what are the flow nets, and flow nets also help in computation of uplift pressure. So uplift pressure is very, very important. As yesterday also, I mean, in the previous class also, I had tried to explain how the uplift pressures are very important for us. So from the flow nets, we can compute the uplift pressure at any point of the basement, or the bottom of the dam, means the foundation of the dam. So uh, in this, what we do, we draw the uplift pressure diagram, and the area of that diagram gives us the total uplift force, so which is acting on the bottom of the dam. So uplift force is very, very important consideration for the stability of the masonry dam. And total uplift force, you see, that acts against the force of gravity due to the weight of dam, and therefore it reduces the stability of the hydraulic structure. So I have chosen one numerical example that I will be discussing with you in the end of this lecture. So this I will see by the numerical. Tomorrow also I want to take a class, extra class. So tomorrow we will finish this seepage, flow nets, and filters. So you can suggest me the time after the lecture. It can be 2 to 3 or whatever time you suggest. The second thing is the second very important thing is the exit gradient and piping. Now about this exit gradient, I had shown in the previous class. Let us say this is the bottom of dam. This is some dam. This is the downstream side only I have shown, and this is the bottom. So this is the ground level. So this is the foundation. So let us say the let us say the flow lines were something like this. Let's say these are the flow lines, and the uh, equipotential lines also. Let us say these are the equipotential lines. These are the equipotential lines. So this is the last field. This is the last area between the equipotential line and the flow lines. So, and I told you that this is called field. This is called field. Now, in this field, the center line, this is the center line. So this is the delta L. This means the length of the center line, or we can say the length of the flow path in the last field. Okay. So these are the seepage lines, and this is the you can say is the tailwater elevation. Tailwater elevation, or it is the this thing. So what is exit gradient? I am just writing a few lines that will help you. So the flows, the flow nets is shown. I mean, so flow net, especially near the toe, near the toe, near the toe is important for exit gradient and piping. So this area is supposed to be the smallest square. So smallest square has the delta L length also a very small. So we can say that when upward hydraulic gradient approaches unity, boiling conditions occur. Boiling conditions occur. This leading to erosion in soil. And this is called piping. This is called piping. This is called piping. So piping, this piping, you see, piping begins near downstream toe, but it may lengthen progressively towards upstream side as the seeping water gradually washes and more soil particles, leaving voids or pipes in soil. Let me try to explain you that when there is an uplift pressure here, so this may create a sort of boiling condition, and due to this boiling, the soil there, the soil here that goes up and then it comes down. So it creates a sort of lot of voids there. Lot of voids are created there. So these voids are also called the pipes in soil. Means continuation of void is termed as pipe in the soil. So piping may work its way backwards, its way backwards along base of dam, along base of dam, along base of dam, right? So if piping is not halted, if piping is not halted, it may result in catastrophic collapse of structure. So the consequences can be highly devastating. So therefore, a very conservative, therefore very very conservative design is made. The hydraulic gradient at exit is called exit, and this is equal to delta H upon delta L. So efforts that exit gradient never be should never close to critical height, and therefore factor of safety of at least 6 is recommended for safety against piping. So what is the solution for this? Solution is vertical cutoff wall. Vertical cutoff wall at downstream end of base of dam. So like I had told you that we can provide this downstream cutoff wall. Downstream cutoff wall. This is the solution. Friends, there is another kind of there is one phenomena called heave. So this is another kind of piping. This is another kind of piping. This heave is another kind of piping, and this also occurs on the downstream side of the hydraulic structure due to this is due to upward acting forces. Upward acting forces of seepage. Upward acting forces of seepage. So when upward seepage forces exceed the downward forces due to submerged weight of soil, the heave occurs. So the factor of safety is defined as WB plus WF upon U. WB is submerged weight of soil prism is weight of filter. WF is weight of filter, and U is equal to total seepage force. Filter I had already explained you. Last time I had told you that the filter is provided here. This filter counterbalances the uplift forces. This counterbalances the uplift forces. So this is about the seepage and exit gradient and uplift forces. Now I will discuss the seepage in anisotropic soil. Friends, what happens that, let us say this is a dam. Now it can be dam, or it can be any, say it can be any retaining wall also. Say it is a retaining wall made of stone masonry, or it can be brick masonry like this, right? And this is the backfill soil. So backfill soil is always compacted in different layers. So when it is, say this is layer 1, this is layer 2, this is layer 3, layer N. So it is compacted up to 98% or 95% of the Proctor density, which I had explained when I was discussing the chapter of compaction. So what happens after the compaction? It has certain permeability. So permeability can be in X direction, which is called Kx, and permeability can also be in Y direction. This is Ky. So what happens? I mean, it can be retaining wall, or instead of concrete dam, it can be, say, the earthen dam also. It can be earthen dam also, which is made of soil only, no concrete, no steel. So here also, this is compacted layer by layer, and this is supposed to store water. So compact, so the permeability in X direction may be different from that in the vertical direction, right? So uh, normally Kx is higher than Ky. In the horizontal direction, it is little higher than the permeability in the vertical direction. So we can say that Kx is equal to K max and Ky is equal to K minimum. So if we recall the equation of continuity, so it is Kx into delta 2h upon del x square plus Ky so here you see it is Ky, it is Kx. So this is not standard Laplace equation. This is not standard Laplace equation. So therefore, for such kind of situations, if it is not a proper Laplace equation, therefore we cannot draw the flow net, because we cannot get confocal or say curvilinear squares, because it is not a true Laplace equation. So therefore modified Laplace equation need be developed. So how it is possible? Say delta 2h upon, the previous equation, I am modifying that, I am dividing it by Ky. So you see, so it is Kx delta 2h upon del x square, and it is Kx upon Ky plus delta 2h upon del y square is equal to 0. Or we can say delta 2h upon del x square del y, Ky is equal to 0. Now substitute x1 is equal to x Ky upon Kx. So del x1 square is equal to del x square Ky upon Kx. Therefore this will be equal to 0. So here it is, instead of x, it is x1. So it is a Laplace equation. It is a Laplace equation. For this, we can easily draw the flow net, because we already know the method of drawing the flow net. So, but friends, we still have the liability on us. We are obliged to modify x1 with the above relationship, that we know that x1, it is not true x, it is x1, which has to be replaced back, or which has to be corrected back. So this is a sort of obligation on our part. So if it was a pure Laplace equation, then for this type of dam, if it was a pure Laplace equation, then the flow net would have been same, which I have been explaining you since last 2-3 days. Since last 2-3 days, which I had been explaining you already. You see, like this, proper squares. But here, this firstly, what we will do, we will draw this flow net, just forgetting for a moment that x1 is equal to x, or I mean just thinking that x1 is nothing but is equal to x. But now the modified flow net for this case shall be, say this is the cutoff wall, or it cannot be, cutoff wall may or may not be there, doesn't matter. So the only thing is that because we are obliged to modify it back to x, so here actually, I mean, this is the modified one, is the modified one. So here this will be, x will be, instead of square, it will be sort of rectangles. It will be rectangle. This will be rectangles. It will be rectangles. It is not a square. So this is the only difference. So in the previous case, we should not forget that this has to be modified, and here x1 is nothing but x ky upon kx. So for such kind of situations, we should remember that the average permeability for this condition is square root of k into ky. So for such situations, we can say that q is equal to square root kx ky into h into nf upon nd. So this is the discharge for the soils in anisotropic, where it is not the isotropic soil condition, it is the anisotropic, means two different permeabilities in different directions. Now next I will discuss that deflection of flow lines at interface of dissimilar soils. Deflection of flow lines. What happens to the flow lines when they enter in the soil medium which has the different permeability from that medium from which the flow lines are emerging out? So let us say this is a interface, This is the interface. And these were the flow lines. These were the flow lines. Let us say AB and CD. These were the flow lines which are starting from the soil medium of K1 and entering into the soil medium with K2 permeability. Now, in the previous discussion just now, we have seen that the flow net shape will be different because of the different permeability. So let us say these lines deflect to this condition. Say it is A1 and it is C1. So CD has become now DC1. AB has become BA1. In fact, these two will be parallel. These two will be parallel. I have drawn it a little wrong. Anyway, so let us say this is Psi1 and Psi2. So these are two flow lines and interface, and then I have explained you K1, K2. Now, if flow lines are there, then obviously there will be equipotential lines also. And as per the rule, equipotential lines have to be almost perpendicular to this. So let us say this was the equipotential line Phi1 for CD, and this was the equipotential line say Phi2 for this AB. Now let us say this makes theta1, and as per the law. Now before that, let me draw the perpendicular to this. Perpendicular to this interface, let us say this yellow line is the perpendicular to this interface, like this. So with this, let us say this makes the, okay, before this, let me draw that these were the Phi1, Phi2 were the original equipotential lines, and let these become Phi1. I mean the after the deflected shape, this takes this shape and this take this shape, this one, like this. So let us say this angle is theta2 and this angle will be theta1, and as per rule this angle shall be 90 minus theta2. This is 90 degree. This is 90 degree. Now this will be 90 minus theta2, this angle, and this angle is also theta2. So I have now defined almost all the angles. Now we will simply use the trigonometry. So these parameters are already defined, and what will be the scenario of the Phi1, Phi2 and Psi1, Psi2. Now in one of the lectures I had told you that Terzaghi said that when the flow net is drawn, the discharge passing through each field delta Q shall be equal to same delta Q in the next field. In the previous lecture, I had explained you like this. In the last lecture, if you see the notes, delta Q1 was equal to delta Q2 like this. So same is here, that delta Q shall be K1 I1 into ED. This is E point E. And this will be, as a rule, shall be equal to K2 I2 into BF. This is F. So here I1 is equal to delta H upon this is point D already defined, EB, and I2 is equal to same delta H upon delta L. So I2 is equal to delta H upon DF. You can refer this figure. Hence, delta Q is equal to K1 into delta H upon EB into ED, and this will be equal to K2 into delta H upon DF into BF. Or on simplification, we can say that K1 upon K2 is equal to EB upon ED into BF upon DF. But from the above diagram, EB upon ED is equal to tangent theta 1 and DF upon BF is equal to tangent theta 2. So we can say that K1 upon K2 is equal to tangent theta 1 on tangent theta 2. So this is the equation which we finally get when there is an interface which separates the two dissimilar soils. So when the water or the flow lines enter into the different permeability zone. So friends, now I will write a few lines. The above relationship can be remembered easily in terms of energy required to force water through soil. When water flows from a soil of low permeability to higher permeability, the rectangles elongate because less area is required to accommodate same quantity of water, and lower gradients are needed. Number two, when flow is from higher permeability to lower permeability, the figures must shorten because steeper gradients are required and relatively more area is needed to accommodate flow. So you see, so this is K2, this is the interface, and this is K1. So this is the K2 less than K1 case. So here these are the this will be the flow net. So this is higher. These will be squares. And another case is, so this is the interface. So this is K1, this is K2. Will be something like this. So it is K2. This is the case. So here you see, if this is A, say this is B, this is A. So here A is equal to B. So this is the situation when the flow passes from two dissimilar soils. So this you should remember. Now I said in the beginning that I will be discussing one numerical example of the uplift pressure computation. So let us say this is a dam. It's a very interesting numerical. This is impervious. Now this is the datum level. This is the datum. And the length of this is, let us say, 17.5, and this is, say, 1.5 meter. This is the water head, say it is 5.1 meter. And you provide, let us say, a cutoff wall of 8 meter depth, and let us say this is 14 meter. Now, so this is the a say real life problem. All the dimensions have been defined, and sheet pile also, or cutoff wall, whatever you call it, has also been there. This will help you in solving the next tutorial. So we can draw the flow net. Flow net will be, say, something like this. These are the flow lines. These are the flow lines. And then you draw the equipotential lines. Equipotential lines. Equipotential lines. You have to maintain these squares. That is the first condition. That is the first condition. Let us say these are, say, point A, this is point B, this is point C, this is point D, this is E, this point is E, this point is E. Now friends, this is the flow, say 1, 2, and this is third. And if you can't count this side 1, this will be 2, for example, this will be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let us say it is 9.4 as per the graph which I explained last time also. So here NF is equal to 3 and ND is equal to 9.4. So Q you can calculate, K is given, say K is given to you, and you can calculate Q is equal to K, H is 5.1, K is given, NF upon ND. So you get some value. Now question is that compute flow, seepage flow, and uplift pressure along base of dam. So the seepage you have calculated. Now pressure. So for this, as I said, you have to draw the uplift pressure diagram. So you just choose point B. You have to choose every point, A, B, C, D, E, all these points you have to choose. I am just giving you the example that how the pressure at point B is calculated. Now at B, till this point B is here. Till this point B, up to this point B, 5 potential drops have already taken place out of 9.4. So 5 out of 9.4, this is the ratio of the potential drops. 9.4 is the total. Now, what will be its effect as compared to the head? Head is 5.1. So what will be the potential drop? That will be, you will have to subtract it from H. So this will be the head at point B. This is the head. This much head is acting on this point B. Now, what will be the pressure head? Pressure head. Pressure head. Now, I had told you that total head is equal to pressure head plus elevation head. Plus elevation head. So pressure head will be total head minus elevation head. So total head is 2.34 minus elevation. You see this point is, this is the datum. Datum level is always considered, the tailwater level is always considered as a datum. So from the datum, this is the datum, this point B is at 1.5 downwards. 1.5. So this comes out as 3.84 meter. 3.84 meter. So therefore, the uplift pressure shall be 3.84 into gamma W. Gamma W. Gamma W, we know if it is expressed unit weight of water, 9.81 kilonewton, right? So this comes out as 37.6 kilonewton per meter square. Now, you will calculate the pressure like this at every point. So point ABCD, then number of drops at that point, then total head, same as I have explained you already, it will be 5.1 minus the head loss, right? Then pressure head, which is equal to total head minus the elevation head, then uplift pressure. This is equal to pressure head into gamma W. So this, friends, you will calculate at, say, the upstream end of base of dam. So number of drops are 0.5. So here it is 5.1 minus 5 upon 9.4 into 0.5. This comes out as 4.74. Then this is 4.74 minus 1.5. This is coming at 6.24, and then pressure comes at 61.1. So now, because time is less, so I am just writing at point A, this will be 5.1 minus number of drops, this 3 upon 9.4 into 5.1. So this comes out as 3.4, and this is coming as 3.4 plus 1.5. This is coming as 4.9, and this is 4.9 into 9.81. So point B, I have already calculated. Point B calculations you will write yourself. Then point C, point D, point E. Let me quickly write for D. For example, this is 7, this is 1.29, this is 2.79, and 27.3, like this. You can fill rest. So now the last point. Now you will draw the pressure diagram. So pressure diagram is, this is the upstream end. So this pressure was coming as 61.1. So you will draw it on the graph paper, then point A, point B, point C. As per the scale, again you will draw A, B, C, D from the graph paper. So at A, the pressure is calculated as 48. At B, already we had calculated 37.6. C, 32.5. D, 27.3. E is 22.1. So you will join this. This is the pressure diagram. This is the pressure diagram. And the area of this pressure diagram will give you the total uplift force. So I have already told you that for the safety against this, it should be, factor of safety should be larger than 6. So in this very example, if you are asked to determine the exit gradient in this very question is, exit gradient is head loss during flow across field. Field means that area, last one. Then length of flow. You get the values from the graph paper. Now the this is coming, I am talking of the last one, the last leg, the last one, this one, I'm talking of this one. So from the graph paper you will see that this is equal to 0.4 into that proportion, 5 upon 9, 5.1 into 9.4. This is coming as 0.213, and length of flow as per the graph paper is 1. So IE will be equal to 0.213 upon 1. So it is 0.213. And factor of safety against boiling shall be 1 upon IE. So 1 upon 0.213, this is coming at as 4.69. So this completes this numerical. So I have given you one typical numerical, and this will help you in solving the next tutorial, which I have already circulated. So I will stop here now, but tell me tomorrow what time I should take the extra class, because I want to finish this chapter. So tomorrow I will discuss the filter design. Please, one of you can tell me the time. Can I take same 2 to 3?
No, sir, we have classes from 2 to 5.
Okay, 2 to 5 your class. So can I take at 5 o'clock tomorrow, please? Or 5:30?
So we also have a quiz in railway engineering and we still don't know the time for that.
Okay, is it tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so can I take class from 12 to 1?
So we already have a tutorial from 12 to 1 tomorrow.
Okay, so can I take on Saturday, please?